Will it take another BaoFeng HT to dethrone the UV-5R? Let's take a look. Hi, and welcome to the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets that catch my eye. If you find this video helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. I really appreciate it. BaoFeng's UV-5R has been around for years and has sold millions. It's the de facto leader in entry-level dual-band Ham HTs. Much of that status derives from its low price and wide availability. BaoFeng's new entry in the budget-friendly HT market has the potential to replace the UV-5R as the new entry-level bestseller. The UV-17R that's now available on Amazon and from the BaoFeng website is that radio. Unfortunately, within the UV-17 radio space, there are several similar but different models. The UV-17R we'll be looking at today is the model with the white on black modern font, not the black on light blue basic block font. I say that to warn you to be careful about what you're ordering so you're not disappointed. As I always do, I need to let you know that this review radio was sent to me by BaoFeng to use for the review. The review is my own opinion and not approved by BaoFeng. As we'll see in the radio tour, this version of the UV-17 has some very cool features. First is the font. When in frequency display mode, the numbers have a modern feel and are white against a black background. If you have the name choice selected for the display channel, names are also white on black, but unfortunately aren't the same large font family as the numbers. This UV-17R has the frequency and CT/CSS scanning mode found on several newer radios. When set to scan, the handset will identify a nearby transmitting radio's frequency and CT/CSS or DCS code. You also have one-key access to the DTMF function, so it's easy to set a DTMF string to the radio. You might use this if you make use of a repeater with an auto-patch system. As is typical for radios in this price range, you can access a broadcast FM function with a press on the side key 2. Access the NOAA weather channels with a long press on the 0 key, and lock the keypad or initiate scanning with long presses on the star or pound key, respectively. Let's take a tour of the radio and menu system. So here's the box that the UV-17R comes in. It's pretty standard for BaoFeng boxes. Let's take a look at what we're going to find inside. First off, we've got an owner's manual for the UV-5R series of radios. It's written pretty well. It lists all of the menu items and all that kind of stuff. And so that is pretty handy. It's pretty easy to understand, and some of the basic functions are described here in the user's manual. To recharge your UV-17R, you get a desk charger. It's got the little insert plug right here that will hold the radio in place. If you've gotten a BaoFeng radio recently, you'll see that these tend to be the chargers that they're getting. They're also different in that they're wired in, so you don't plug something into the back of the charger. From a perspective of what goes in and out, it'll take 100 to 140 volts of input, and then it outputs 8 volts and at 0.25 amps. So that's the in and out electrically of this little desk charger. And then these two prongs here hit the two contacts on the back of the battery. Things that are pretty standard with BaoFeng radios. Comes with a wrist strap. Here is the belt clip for the the radio. The screws are mounted in the radio, and they're on the radio, not the battery. And this is a little wired headset with inline push-to-talk. And again, if you've gotten BaoFeng radios before, you've probably got a drawer full of these little guys. So those are the primary accessories that come with the radio. So here's the antenna that comes with the radio. It's a little more flexible than the typical little rubber ducky. The socket side here is in the antenna. That means the plug side's in the radio. And then on the little insert, it's got printed the frequency range, and this is a dual band antenna since it's a dual band radio. Now let's talk about the battery for just a moment. The battery comes labeled, it's described as a BL17UV. It's a 7.4 volt battery with 1800 milliamps for the battery. There are the contacts for power to the radio. Notice it screws in, so that's going to add to the intrusion protection. This does not claim any intrusion protection as some of the other UV-17 versions might, but the battery does screw in. The other thing to notice in this battery is that it doesn't have the little flap and USB-C connection right here. I'll show you that in my other UV-17. But again, this is a $25 radio, so there are some choices that they've made to get this down into that ultra low price category. And so this radio competes directly with the UV-5R that's been around forever. Frankly, I like the appearance of this radio, and with some of the accessories that it does not come with, and the fact that it doesn't have a USB-C charge, puts this down to be a direct competitor there to that UV-5R. And if you're looking at a UV-5R, you may in fact want to look at one of these UV-17Rs instead. So let's do an exterior tour of the UV-17R. The screen is right here. The menu button, the exit button up and down work the same. Here are the number keys, and if you're in the menu system, the other name on the key is the menu is associated with, so you can directly access menu 0 through 9 from your keypad just by pressing menu and then 8, 5, whatever. To get to the higher number, you can scroll up and down, or you can do the numbers in combination. So if you wanted to go to menu item number 424, you'd press menu 24, and you'd skip to that particular menu item. We'll show you some of that here in just a second. There's a scan button, and these are all pretty normal for BaoFeng radios. On this side, we've got the cover, and it's got the cover for the K1, and it's got the 3.5 and 2.5 millimeter plugs for programming cable, or a speaker mic, or the little wired mic that the kit comes with. On the back, I've got the battery off. Here are the contacts. You've got a little grommet right there, little rubber grommets, which leads me to believe that, in fact, there are some intrusion protection levels here with this radio that the seller isn't claiming. The model number is UV-5R, and it's got the BaoFeng UV-17 FCC ID number here, and then a metal tray that the battery sits in. Speaking of the battery, let's slide this little guy in. And we'll screw it down tight. Okay, on this side we've got the flashlight button. That's programmable key 1. Push to talk button is right here. Programmable side key 2 is right there. On the top we've got the socket for the antenna, and that's got the plug side in it. So the spike is in this one. So the male and this female in the antenna. We'll put that on here just real quick. And the receive and transmit LED indicator here. There's an indicator molded into the case for GPS antenna, but this does not have GPS. The UV-17 Pro does have. This is the on-off button. And then on the bottom of all of the UV-17s are the flashlights, and there are 2 LEDs mounted there on the bottom. So that's a quick tour of the UV-17R. Now let me put the other UV-17s that I have next to it so you can see a comparison, and then we'll do a power on tour of the radio. Okay, so here are the other UV-17s that I have. This one I haven't mounted its belt clip on, so these appear to be a little taller, but it's because the belt clip isn't right here. So you can see the displays are the same, labeling is the same, the sides are all the same. They all have the LEDs on the bottom. On this side, they've got the light, push-to-talk, side key programming, just like the UV-17R does. And the difference on the back is going to be the flap for the USB charging. So you can see these batteries are identical, other than the fact that this one has a battery management system built into the case, so you can charge it via USB-C. Now, if that's important to you, get a hold of a USB-C chargeable battery, or if you have other UV-17Rs, you can just swap the batteries out. But again, entry-level radio, some of the entry-level capabilities, and one of the takeaways to me is not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, especially for the new Ham, is the lack of a USB-C on that battery. But that's easily remedied by obtaining a spare battery with USB. And any of these higher level models of the UV-17 are going to have the USB-C. So let's power this one on and continue our tour. So one of the interesting things about this, and one of the things that I really like, is the color screen and the fact that the radio frequencies or other display information is white on a black background. Here is the other UV-17 that I have, and you can see that it's black on a white background. And so the various fonts and so forth in this new UV-17R is really a lot more attractive than the basics of that first round of UV-17s that you may have gotten earlier this year from Chinese vendors such as AliExpress. Menus on this work exactly the same. You press the menu key, then the menu opens up in the space where the lower register normally is, and then you can see the squelch is set, and then you can change the various menus just by pressing up and down. So if I press menu again, I can change the squelch level. 5, 4, 6. I'm going to go up, change it to 3, press squelch, and you can see over here I've got the menu number flashing, so it's menu number 0, and I exit. Now, if I want to go directly to one of the other menus, as I mentioned, I can go here, press menu, and then I can go to ABR, which is the brightness control. If I want to make a change, I can go through here. I have 5, 10, 15, 20, or just on. And so I've got the on. Let's leave it on for this recording. And then if I want to go up to my next menu item, I can just continue. And so the menu display is a little different, but it works the same. So let's go up to the end of the menu. I think it was around item number 40. So let's go up and go item 40. And so it gives me the power on message. I can get a logo or the voltage, which primary, reset, power on, stopwatch, which is an interesting feature of the radio. Then here, the version, and that's really handy. Some of the newer radios are coming out with a menu item that give you the firmware. So this is hardware version 01, and then you can got firmware version v1.4 here on menu item number 45, and then it cycles back to item number 0. So that's a quick tour of the menu items here on the UV-17R. We'll talk about some of the other aspects of this radio and some of the other cool functions here later in the review. A lot of folks like to know what the power outputs are for these small HTs. Let's take a look. So let's do a quick power test with the UV-17R. This is in the VHF range on low power. We'll be using the lower arc on this MFJ 874 power meter. So here it goes. Looks like about 2.8 watts on low power, 2.8. Now, same frequency on high power VHF band. Here we go. It looks to be about 4.6, which is really pretty good for 5-watt advertised radio, 4.6. And for those of you who care, we're going into a dummy load here, so we're not transmitting out into the airwaves. Now let's do a quick change to the UHF frequency and do the same thing. So here we are on UHF low power. Again, the low arc of this meter. About 1 watt, 1.1. High power. About 3.1, 3.2 watts in the UHF band. So that's our power outputs here with this BaoFeng UV-17R. Here's a quick sample of both the receive and transmit audio.
Receive test on the UV-17R, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, test out. Transmit test on the UV-17R, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, test out.
Now, let's do a quick look at the CPS, which you can find on the BaoFeng website. You may have noticed on the Power On tour the custom opening screen on my radio. This CPS has a tool option that allows you to import a small bitmapped graphic into the radio. I thought that was pretty cool. So here's a quick look at the UV-17R's CPS, and you notice it's labeled the T6 UV series, and it comes up as most of these do with the channel information. I've got the programming cable plugged into the radio, and I've looked onto the device manager to know that the correct COM setting is port number 3. So I'm going to go up here to settings, go to port, select COM 3, and then I'm going to read from the radio. Now, one of the quirky things about this CPS is that when I tried this before with just building a code plug and then sending it to the radio, it said there was a model type error. And so I thought that was odd. But when I read from the radio, make changes and read back to the radio, it works fine. So just be mindful of that. So here, let me read from the radio. It's finished. And so here are the stations or the repeaters and other channels that I have programmed in. Now, this display works pretty much like all the rest of them do. You know, you can click in an empty spot, type in the frequency, then it fills in, go back in to change the transmitter frequency if you need to put in an offset for your repeater, set in the receive and transmit CTCSS. Most repeaters just have a transmit CTCSS, and that's the transmit from your radio. And so I have those set in, and then you can make changes to high and low power, wide, narrow, whether it's on your scan list or not, and these other choices. And then you can add a name, which I've done. And you've got about 8 characters or so available to you. So you don't have to be too creative when setting up a name. Now, the other thing we want to do is we can see what other things we want. So in our Windows choice up here with these standard Windows drop-down menus, you can go to the VFO mode and you can see the VFO settings where it's going to kick off. Some of those settings are right here. Normally, I don't make any changes there. And then you can go into the function mode, and here is where you can make many of the changes to your radio's menus. So things like the squelch level, timeout timer, power save mode. We see over here the key lock I've got centered off. The alarm mode tone is on, but the alarm itself only sounds on the radio. The language is English, the VOX is off, and so forth. So all of these things are easily settable with drop-down boxes here in the function menu. Now, one of the things I do want to point out to you is in this Tools menu, if you click on it, it gives you a choice for the Power On Picture, and it opens up a separate box where you have to select the COM port again, but then you can use this open image to go into File Manager and select a 160 by 128 size image in bitmap. So, any bitmap art, the basic bitmap editor in your Windows machine will work. Otherwise, just about any art program is going to be able to save a bitmap image. And so if you have one that's 160 by 128, you can import it, and then that becomes the custom power on screen for your radio. With all of that done, I'm going to press write. I'm going to write it to the radio. Of course, in this case, I haven't made any changes, but if I made changes, they would go across. And then I can go up here to File, and then I can save as. And so I usually give it a name in a common place where I store my radio code plugs. And I started out with the year, month, and date, and then the model number, so that I know what it is. If I have to make a correction or if something has to be reset, I can go back to a known code plug. So that is what we have here on the CPS. It really works pretty well. One of the things reviewers on YouTube seem to be including more and more are harmonics tests, or using the fancy term, spectral purity tests. I think one reason is the easy availability and low cost of the tiny SA spectrum analyzer. Now, I have one and have run some tests on various radios. They're pretty cool. I'm of two minds on this, though. One is that my ham shack isn't a testing lab, and I really can't control all the other RF in the room. The other is that the Tiny SA's online manual warns about device self-generated harmonics if the device is not set correctly. So for me, while the Tiny SA results are certainly interesting, I'm not about to declare some product as legal or illegal for Part 97 operation. In the case of the UV-17R, I asked my BaoFeng contact if they had engineering test results for the radio, and they sent me a 50-plus page package that included lab-grade harmonics tests that showed a signal that met Part 97 standards, both in terms of the level below the fundamental and the total harmonic output levels. When you compare the style, build quality, large color screen, and feature set of this UV-17R to the UV-5R at the same price point, there's really no comparison. The UV-17R has a modern look and a much more solid and streamlined feel. As I said earlier, though, look carefully at what you're ordering. This is a different radio than the UV-17R with all the extra accessories. Be sure the screen display shows the white on black modern fonts. As you saw during the radio tour, the accessories with this offering are limited. If you haven't used a CPS to program a radio with a K1 connector, you'll need to plan to purchase a programming cable. Other than that, you'll be good to go. I'll leave some product links in the description below. Join me over here if you'd like to learn more about the BaoFeng UV-17 Pro with GPS. As always, please subscribe and let me know what you think. Comments are always welcome. Thanks for watching, and 73.